Shalom, and welcome to a special lesson in the book of Esther. The book of Esther, which appears in the Ketuvim of the Tanakh. We read on the holiday of Purim, and it is a very unique book. It tells the story of the people of Israel not in Israel. And not only that, the people of Israel are establishing a new holiday. This is the last holiday in the book, and it tells the story of the people of Israel, mainly in Persia, in the time of the Persian kingdom. To be more specific, we're talking about the time of King Achashverosh. Achashverosh is the king of Persia, not only the king of Persia, but the king of the Persian emperor after Koresh, Cyrus, and before Darius. In this specific period, we are talking about after the declaration of Cyrus, who allows the people of Israel to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. The majority of the people of Israel are not in Jerusalem at the time. And it's before the period of Darius, who, in his time, the building of the temple was actually rebuilt. And we're in this period of time. The book of Esther has 10 chapters. Actually, the first 2 are the background of the story. They are the exposition. In terms of chronology, we're talking about the first 2 chapters take place from the 3rd year of Achashverosh until the 12th year of Achashverosh, a period of 9 years. Whereas the chapter 3, all the way to the end of the book, chapter 10, we're talking about less than a year. From the first month of the 12th year of the kingdom of Achashverosh until the 12th month of that year. So this is the chronological model structure of the book. But what is the message? In order to understand the message, we have to reread the first chapter again with the eyes of what's going on here. We're talking about the king of the world, the emperor. Under his reign, we have 127 countries. There is nobody stronger than him. And he's there for 180 days, 6 months. What is he doing? Drinking, celebrating, parading, showing off, open house. Anybody who wants to come in can come and celebrate with the great king and see the beauties of his kingdom. But already here we see the absurd. Already here we see that he can rule over 127 countries. He cannot even persuade his own wife to join him in the party. He's spending 180 days of drinking and parading. He feels like he's the strongest person in the world. Nothing can be stronger than him. Slowly, step by step, we reach a point where he, at the end of chapter 2, he's already protecting himself from 2 people who try to assassinate him. Not simple people. These are 2 of the chamberlains of the doorkeepers. These are the people who are in charge of his life. And they attempt to assassinate him. And if not for this Jew, Mordechai, who is sitting at the gate of the king, which in the Bible refers to being a judge. Mordechai was probably the Supreme Court judge of the Persian Empire. And he saves the king's life. So in this absurd situation, the person who's supposedly the strongest can barely protect himself. In this situation, we have the story of Esther, the story of the book of Esther, which is the story of the people of Israel, living in this absurd, abnormal situation. And for them themselves, the people of Israel, this is an absurd situation. Because normally, a people should be in their own homeland. And this is what God has created the world, that every nation has its homeland. So of course the people of Israel, who are the chosen people of God to bring His light to the world, should have their own homeland. And they should be united around the house of God, where His name is united to be one, announced in the world, to recognize His unity. But the people of Israel did not pay attention to the call of Cyrus, and they do not come back to their homeland. They prefer living in this abnormal situation. And in this situation, we see how everything is so absurd. From the very fact that the king is busy trying to select himself a beautiful virgin. 6 months they're in this kind of oil, and 6 months in this kind of perfume. And that's what the king is doing. That's what he's busy doing. He's running the whole world. But no. He reaches a point where if in the first exposition of the story, he's trying to convince his wife to come so he can show off what a beautiful wife he has, in the next part of the story, or in what takes place in those months, we see that anybody who dares come into the house of the king, we see as Esther says to Mordechai, please fast for me, don't eat, don't drink for 3 days, because everybody knows that anybody who goes in to the inner courtyard of the palace without being called upon is in danger. And this is a place where the king himself is fearing for his own life. And why is he fearing for his own life? Because he is busy celebrating. He's busy not ruling the world. And this Queen Esther, in her sweet words, that everybody knows that you can't go into the kingdom, shows what happens to Achashverosh from the 3rd year to the 12th year, where he supposedly was the king of the world. And here he is in a situation of absurd that even the queen, for 30 days she has never seen him because he's afraid of his life. At the same time, there's a person named Haman who's already building up his future political statue. He's making sure his pictures are hanging around all over the city. His pictures are probably even bigger than the pictures of the king. He's trying to take over anything. When he for a very second he gets the offer, who do you think is the person who found favor in the eyes of the king? He can't think of anybody else but himself. He's the Secretary of State, but in his eyes, he's the king. He wants everybody to bow down to him. He realizes the king's in a weakness. And Mordechai, who was the one who overheard those 2 people who tried to assassinate the king, he is there to protect the king. And at that moment, the king, he can't sleep at night. Of course he can't sleep at night. He doesn't understand what's going on. He sees this guy Haman taking over. This guy Haman, even almost in his eyes, wants to take over the queen. He can't trust anybody. He can't even trust his own queen. So when he can't sleep, he opens the book with all the jury cases, and he wants to see what's going on. Who can he trust? And he sees there's only one person. Mordechai is the person he can trust. Nothing was ever done to him. He was never paid back for what he did. And here we have this Haman trying to build himself his own new political status, spotting the fact that the king Achashverosh is about to lose his stability. But at this point, we have the people of Israel. In their abnormal situation, they are not in their own homeland. They are not even answering upon the king's permission to go build the temple. They're celebrating. And this Mordechai, who supposedly is the one who's endangering them, because he refuses to kneel and bow down to Haman, he's actually the one with his perspective that saves the people. Because he understands that he has to worship God in the right way. He has to understand that everything is in the hand of God. And when he tells Esther that if you don't understand this, God's going to help us somewhere else. God is going to be with us, even though the people of Israel aren't going back to the homeland. But how will the people of Israel learn to behave amongst themselves when they're in this abnormal situation? He establishes a celebration. And the celebration of Purim, the holiday of Purim, has two main commandments that Mordechai teaches the people. And he says, as we read in the book of Esther, in chapter 9, he says, this month which God saved us should turn into a day of happiness. Mishloach manot ish lire'ehu umatanot la'evyonim. This is a time where we send portions of food to our friends and gifts to the poor. Yes. In this situation, which is an abnormal situation, an absurd situation, where we're not in our homeland, the personal person, who maybe him on his own cannot go ahead and build a temple, even though he's obliged to do so as a nation, at this point at least, remember that this whole thing began because Haman, peeking at the people of Israel and understanding that the only way he can overcome them is by the fact that they are separate, they are spread around. Mordechai says the way to overcome this is if each and every one strengthens the very infrastructure of friendship between one another. But of course, all of this situation is a situation of absurd. Because in the whole book of Esther, God's name is not mentioned even once. In the whole book of Esther, God is sort of not available, but he's there. He's there behind the scenes. He's waiting for the people of Israel to go back home to their homeland and rebuild the temple, and he obliged them to do so. But meanwhile, at least, as Mordechai tells the people, respect one another. Send presents to one another. Don't forget the poor. But still, with a very slim hint, at the end of the book, it says that the very last sentence, Mordechai was a great man. He found favor with the majority of his brothers. This is a temporary situation. Mordechai will go up, Mordechai may go down, because the whole situation of the people of Israel in Galut, in exile, is a very shaking situation. The real way to overcome it, come home, come rebuild the temple that God has obliged us to do. But if in this situation, at least remember to give to one another, to unite one another, to touch the hearts of one another. It's the only way to survive in the kingdom of absurd. It's the only way to survive in such an abnormal situation of not being in the homeland. The real way to do it is coming back home, because the people of Israel have to come back home. But in the abnormal situation, what we can do is survive. We can't really build our future. The future, the building, the stability of the people of Israel is in Jerusalem. Rebuilding of God's house, rebuilding the house of God, which represents uniting the entire world around God, around his kingdom, and around his name. Happy Purim.